Imagine this, a bustling bar on a Friday night, filled with college students laughing, music playing. It's the kind of place you'd go to forget your worries. But for one man, this ordinary night would become the start of an extraordinary mystery. On March 31, 2006, a 27-year-old medical student named Brian Shaffer walked into a bar in Columbus, Ohio, and was never seen again. This is one of the most baffling and haunting disappearances in modern history. And today, we're going to dive into what makes it a real-life locked room puzzle. Brian Shaffer was a bright, promising student at the Ohio State University. He had his entire future ahead of him, on the verge of becoming a doctor. But he was also carrying a heavy heart. Just a few weeks earlier, his mother had passed away after a long battle with cancer. Friends said he was struggling with the grief but doing his best to stay positive. That Friday night was meant to be a break, a chance to unwind before final exams and a planned spring break trip with his girlfriend. He met up with a friend, and they headed to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular second-floor bar in the heart of the University District. Security cameras are at the core of this mystery. At exactly 1:15 a.m., the camera positioned at the top of the escalator, the only public entrance and exit to the bar, captured Brian Shaffer arriving. He looked relaxed, just another face in the crowd. For the next 40 minutes, he was seen on camera inside, mingling and talking with his friend and other patrons. At 1:55 a.m., he stepped outside the main entrance onto a small landing at the top of the escalator. He chatted briefly with two young women, said goodbye, and then turned to re-enter the bar. The camera recorded that final movement. That was the last confirmed sighting of Brian Shaffer. When the bar closed at 2:00 a.m., the lights came on, and everyone began to file out. Brian's friend waited for him downstairs, assuming he would be right behind. But Brian never appeared. After waiting for a while, his friend eventually left. Thinking Brian had probably just walked home on his own, but he hadn't. Police meticulously reviewed hours of surveillance footage from that single camera. They saw every single person who left the bar that night. Everyone, except Brian. He went in, but he never came out. This is where the case becomes truly perplexing. Investigators were stumped. The bar's only public exit was covered. So where could he have gone? They explored every possibility. Was there a secret exit? A hidden door? They discovered a service exit at the back of the building, which led into a messy construction site. It wasn't an easy way out, especially in the dark, but it was theoretically possible. However, there were no cameras covering that exit. If Brian did leave that way, what happened next? There were no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and no reports of any crime in the area that night. His car was found right where he parked it. His wallet and keys were gone, but his bank accounts and credit cards were never used again. 2 days later, the real alarm was raised. Brian was scheduled to fly to Miami to meet his girlfriend for spring break. When he didn't show up for the flight and stopped answering his phone, his family knew something was terribly wrong. His father, Randy Shaffer, reported him missing, and a massive search effort began. The police investigation intensified, but it yielded no clues. They interviewed over 100 people who were at the bar that night. No one remembered seeing anything unusual, no fights, no arguments, no one in distress. Then, one of the most chilling details of the case emerged. For weeks, and even months after he vanished, Brian's girlfriend Alexis would call his cell phone every night before she went to sleep. Most of the time, it went straight to voicemail. But on several occasions, it rang. It rang 3 times before going to voicemail. On one of those nights, the phone even pinged a cell tower in Hilliard, a suburb about 14 miles away from the bar. Each time authorities tried to trace the signal, it vanished before they could get a lock on its location. Was someone turning the phone on and off? Was it a technical glitch? Or was Brian himself alive, somewhere out there, for a brief moment? We may never know. Eventually, the calls stopped, and the phone went silent forever. As time went on, theories began to swirl. The first, and most obvious, Was foul play? Did something happen inside the ugly tuna saloon? In a crowded, noisy bar, could an altercation have occurred that went unnoticed? Perhaps an argument that ended tragically, with his body being removed through that unmonitored service exit. But detectives found no physical evidence, no blood, no witnesses, nothing to suggest a crime took place inside those walls. Another theory is that Brian chose to disappear. Overwhelmed by grief from his mother's death, did he decide to walk away and start a new life? His father initially considered this, hoping his son was safe somewhere. But this theory doesn't quite add up. Brian was on the cusp of achieving his dream of becoming a doctor. He was deeply in love with his girlfriend and close to his father. He left behind his car, his money, his passport, and all his belongings. Voluntarily disappearing without a trace, with no resources, seems highly improbable for someone with so much to look forward to. The search for Brian took a devastating toll on his family. His father, Randy, dedicated his life to finding his son. He worked with private investigators, appeared on national television, and never, ever gave up hope. Tragically, in 2008, just 2 years after Brian disappeared, Randy Shaffer was killed in a freak accident when a tree fell on him during a windstorm. He died without ever learning what happened to his only child. Today, nearly 2 decades later, the case of Brian Shaffer remains open but cold. The ugly tuna saloon has long since closed its doors. The witnesses' memories have faded. Yet, the central question endures: how does a person walk into a public place and simply vanish into thin air? The security camera footage acts as a silent witness, showing us the moment he entered a space and then, nothing. It's a true locked room mystery. But the room was a crowded bar, and the walls were made of people. The disappearance of Brian Shaffer is a haunting reminder that sometimes, the most unsettling mysteries aren't the ones that happen in dark alleys or remote woods. They're the ones that happen right in front of us, in plain sight, leaving behind a silence that is louder and more terrifying than any answer could be. The truth is locked away in those final, unrecorded moments of that night. Thank you for joining me for this look into a truly perplexing case. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Brian Shaffer, please contact the Columbus Police Department. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into compelling mysteries. Stay aware and stay safe.